Hey, what's up, y'all, and welcome to the 139th edition of the Take One podcast. I am your host, August C. Jones, and after a week hiatus, I am back with the Take One podcast. And we got a few things to get into, just certain things that was on my mind. And if we have enough time, I'm going to do some movie reviews. So let's go ahead, cut the jib jab, and let's jump right into the first thing right off the bat. So one of the things that came across my mind is, what will theaters be like once everything is, I guess you could say, start to get back to normal? Once this corona thing is handled and everything is starting to reopen. Because at this point, we don't know how long this is going to go. We don't know if it could go on for like a month or two, 6 months, a year. You know, it could be 2021 by the time that this clear up and we finally see the light at the end of the tunnel where we could get back to normalcy. So that was just one of the things, because it's like, it is a valid question. And now in this show, I know it's, a lot of bigger things out there than what will movie theaters be like, but this show is about entertainment and stuff. So, and movies are one of the things that I talk about on this show. So it's like, what will movie theaters be like when they open back up? And it could go a few ways. So, all the theaters closed down. The box office is closed and everything else. And movies are shifting. Whether they don't have a set release date, they just got pulled and just kind of like floating in the ether until, things look brighter. Then they're going to float back down to a release date. Or they actually got pushed to a later date, whether it's like a month or two later, within 6 months later, or within over a year later, like we got with Wonder Woman recently, No Time to Die, as well as F9. They got pushed to next year. So what will movie theaters be like? Because you're not going to have the same movies that were out when movie theaters was up back in theaters when they open back up. Let's say August 20th. Right before my birthday. Let's say August 20th is when theaters open back up. You're not going to have I Still Believe or freaking Bloodshot, I'm about to say Blood Clot, or those still there. They're going to need to open up with something. So one of my things is that they could possibly, more than likely theaters are going to get the heads up from movie studios, or movie studios are going to get the heads up from theaters like, this is the time that we're opening up. They said it's cool for us to open up and blah, blah, blah. We're only going to have a certain amount of people, but we're opening up our theaters, our doors. So if you have a movie to release that day, you can release it close to that time, maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, within a month of the opening of the theaters. So more than likely, if they still have movies floating in the ether, they can bring them down, but like, okay, we're going to drop them 2 weeks from now. We're going to do it here. We're going to do it there. More than likely, we're going to get it from, maybe some weeks prior to them opening. So you're going to have time to advertise and everything else. So I feel like they might end up doing that. And I heard that like movie theaters in China were going to open up. And they were going to play older movies like the Avengers movies, Avatar, Lord of the Rings trilogy and stuff like that, to get people in theaters, like those big major films that actually did good. They're going to get, some of them back in theaters, get people wanting to go to the movies and stuff like that. And everything was looking all, peachy. But I think they might end up doing something like that, just to bring people back in, because who wouldn't want to, see certain movies in theaters that they didn't get a chance to see it in theaters when they were actually in theaters around the first run and all that stuff. But will the box office have a big boom? That's kind of like it's kind of like a weird thing to predict, because when you look at it, you're going to look at it like people like me, people just regularly that probably don't go to the movies that often, and now they can't go to the movies at all, probably might want a sense of normalcy. Other stores are going to open back up, other restaurants and stuff, so they're going to want to get out the house since they're kind of like contained in quarantine. So they're going to want to get out. So they're going to go to the places that they went to or that they were able to go to before all this started. And the movie theaters is going to more than likely be one. And if they have movies that's showing like that, it's probably going to get a lot of people in theaters. So But if you have newer movies, I'm not saying like a Wonder Woman is going to pop up around that time, but maybe you have a Quiet Place, maybe a week after movie theaters open. You know, have a Quiet Place drop right there up in like September or something like that. You're going to get a lot of people. You're going to get a lot of people going to go to the movies. Now, it could work one of two ways. You can get people who really want normalcy and they're going to flock to the theaters like they would have said if it would have came out a few weeks ago when theaters was actually open, or before theaters actually closed and stuff like that. Had this not had taken over and Quiet Place 2 been pulled, they probably might flock to it like that. Or people might still be a little bit cautious. Might be like, okay, yeah, this movie is coming out, but you're probably gonna get a lot of people going to go see this, so I'm gonna wait a few weeks after. So dropping a movie as major as that may not end up making as much money as the first one did, or really not being profitable. So there's a risk that you run, because on one hand, people might be wanting a whole bunch of normalcy, might go out and do the things that they wasn't able to do for a certain amount of months because they were quarantined, and then people are still kind of like, yeah, they say this and that, but I'm gonna give it like a month before I actually start kind of getting into, don't start trying to gradually get back into things. So I think it may end up having a boom, or it may not. And if it does have a boom, it's not going to be for that long. Or it probably might be a little bit after. Maybe, I say a month after theaters open. You probably might start seeing a huge boom once things start to get back to normal. So I believe that that's one thing that's going to happen with it. As far as showing new movies, more than likely you're not going to see a Wonder Woman drop around that time. Just like, because like these are special circumstances, so you might see it, but there's a certain reason why movie studios drop movies at certain points in time, because this is around the time that they make a lot of money. People go to the theaters during the summer seasons and stuff like that. That's called the blockbuster season, or just certain seasons throughout the year, certain times. People go to the movies and stuff like that. So you might still have them trying to do that, or you might have them, but like, look, people are really starting to go to the movie theaters. Let's open it up around that time. So you probably might see them redirect and kind of do something different than what they would normally do because of this extraordinary circumstance that we're in and all that stuff. So it's a lot of things that can happen. Right now it doesn't look like it's going to, be anything anytime soon, because China was just about to open up a lot of theaters, which they did for a little bit, or I think a lot of them were open for a little bit, but then they decided to reclose them. Just kind of like being cautious that they don't want another outbreak and everything else. Certain things are starting to look up. They're like, oh, China getting things back in order. They're starting to try to, get back into things, and now they reclose it just to kind of like be on the safe side, which I can't blame them. I'm not going to sit here and like bitch and rant and all this stuff, because the public safety is more important than seeing a damn movie, I would rather have my safety than, freaking going to go see A Quiet Place 2 or Wonder Woman or something like that. And so, until things actually start looking crazy, this is going to be our reality, something that we would normally see, oddly enough, in a actual movie. But, hopefully things get better and we start to see another light, and then this time it's true. And it doesn't be anything like just where it's like it's a false alarm. But I think that's what's going to happen. So my answer to that question is, I think you're going to see a boom. You may end up seeing a boom, maybe a little bit afterwards, but it all depends on how people are going to react to going back to doing what they were doing before all this happened. And so one of the other things that came across my mind is, can movie studios really profit off of movies being sent to VOD? Now, so we had certain movies get sent early enough to VOD, like The Invisible Man, The Hunt, Emma, which I have reviews for The Hunt and Emma on my channel, so go check that out. And just certain movies that were released early to VOD as well. Birds of Prey, The Way Back, certain movies like that, Gentleman, and all that stuff. And even movies that's been out for a minute that maybe wouldn't have been put to digital early, as early as like very recently, within like these past weeks or whatever, are on digital now and everything else. Even Disney put Frozen 2 on Disney Plus earlier than what it was supposed to. I think it was like months earlier than what it was supposed to be on there. And I think what is it? The Rise of Skywalker was like a week or two early, put on digital or whatever. So movie studios are kind of like adjusting what they're doing, their plans for putting stuff on digital, bringing stuff early out for, VOD and everything else. And it's like they're trying to just really adjust to it, like I said. And the question is, can they really profit off of that? And the answer would be no. Because I'm going to try and cut this down to where it is. I'm not going to go deep into like the numbers and everything else. But you're not going to see the numbers that, movies will make in theaters on home video. I don't care if we're quarantined like a mother lover. Just kind of like how we are, how things is. If things got worse, I don't even think that, they still will make the money. Because you got to think about it. When you're in theaters, when you're in the movie theaters, you legally would pay each time you watch the movie. So if I went to go see, let's say, the Rise of Skywalker, I like the movie so much I want to see it like 3 times in theaters or whatever. I'm going to pay $10 each time I pay it. Or, excluding my, AMC A-list or whatever. But I will pay $10 each time. And let's say, even if, let's say I'm paying for myself and I go with somebody else. I take my son. I take my father. I take a girl or something like that. Or me and my brother go or something like that. It's like you're getting more money out of each time and each person that goes. So if I take my son one time, if I go by myself, that's $10. I take my son the next time. That's $30 coming out of me because he ain't about to pay for his ticket. If I take a girl the next time, that's $50. If I take my father, that's $70. So you're getting a lot of money each time I go. I'm literally paying what? That's $30 for myself to see it. This movie. And, and then I have to pay for each person that goes every time I take another person or something like that. So you're getting $70, or if I go more times and I get more other people, if I got other people with me, that's over $100 that I spent on watching that. And when you're watching on VOD, digital or whatever, or even just buying it, you're not going to pay that much. You're going to pay $20 or $25 at the most. And that's really about it. And renting, now that it is officially on digital and I believe Blu-ray, it's like renting it is cheaper than what it would be for The Invisible Man or movies that are coming out early for rent for VOD. Because movies that are coming out early for VOD are going to be $20 to rent. The Rise of Skywalker is going to be what? Less than $10 to rent. So, I mean, when it comes to it, it's not going to make that much money. And then even when you rent it, you get a certain amount of time before you could do it. If you haven't rented anything digital, it's somewhat to kind of like renting out the store. You'll rent it and you'll be able to watch it. You'll keep it for 30 days though. You'll keep it for 30 days. But once you start actually watching it, you will have a 48-hour period to, finish watching it. And by that time, it'll expire and you have to rent it again in order to watch it. So within that time, even if you rent it, you can have other people over. So you only have to pay, like $6 for a rental. And then after that, bam, you can have like 10 other people there watching it with you. And that's 10 people, like besides yourself, that will pay $10 normally in theaters to watch it. So they're losing a crap ton of money if they put it on rental for digital and all that stuff. And then on top of that, you can't really stop anybody from recording it like you can in like the movie theater. You know, you have more of a chance of getting caught in the movie theater recording something off your phone or camera than you are at the crib. And other people have things to where they can record it digitally or whatever at home and actually sell it to other people, put it online and all that stuff. So there's more of a risk for doing that regularly, like how Trolls is doing, which they got into a big thing with movie theaters for doing it because they didn't tell them. And now movie theaters are more than likely going to have to they're going to shit all over Universal. Their upcoming movies, it's not going to be pretty. But not even to get into that, there is a lot of just negatives and non-benefits going toward movie studios as far as financially if they release big major movies like Wonder Woman 1984 or Quiet Place 2 or No Time to Die or F9 or whatever, or just big budgeted movies like that. And, you know, just VOD, you know, you're not going to make as much money as you would in theaters. Just for that premise alone. And there's probably a whole bunch of other stuff that you could say, you know, that are, you know, just that could count against it. But those are just main things. It's just financially, when you look at stuff like that, they won't be able to make a profit off of it. Now, I do feel like they probably should release maybe, I say, certain independent films like that. But at the same time, you will be like, why do big major budget movies get, you know, priority like that, putting theaters over these independent films? Well, for one, independent films won't make as much money as these major blockbusters. You're not going to get people flocking to the movie theaters to go see The Lighthouse like you would Wonder Woman 1984. I mean, it's just common sense. But I mean, and that's not really putting anything against like these independent films, but I think they would stand more of a chance of being released on VOD rather than in theaters, because people will more than likely go see a Lighthouse at home or rent than they would, you know, than they would pay for it in theaters. So, I don't think that they could profit off of it. So the best thing that these major films can do is, these studios do is just pull them, put them to a new date, or just hold them up to where it's like, okay, we're going to see when things get better. Once things start looking like we can put it back in theater, we're going to set a release date. Because that's what they were thinking about with Wonder Woman 1984. And it's like people like David Harbour really want people to see this. But at the same time, even if you're in the movie, you want the movie to make as much money. Because it is a potential $1 billion movie. Potential. It could potentially be $1 billion movie. Well, I mean, for Black Widow. I don't even know if I said that. But yeah, I mean, I would want, if I was in the movie, I would want it to play in theaters, because certain movies are meant to see on the big screen. Certain movies are meant to see on the big screen. So I don't see any major theaters being able to profit off of it, or that will do it like that. I mean, Universal doing it for Trolls, that's just a whole different other story. But when it comes down to it, it's not beneficial at all. Now, going from that, let's talk about what's new to rent on the stream. Since Box Office Talk is on hiatus right now, we can talk about new to rent on the stream, since that's the only form of any type of blockbuster that is on, that's up and going right now. So, basically, since I didn't do a show last week, these are the releases that came out last week: 1917 and The Grudge, and that's all for DVD releases. As far as digital releases last week, it was Birds of Prey, Doolittle, The Gentleman, Just Mercy, The Way Back, and Bloodshot. All you can go check out on digital. And as well as tomorrow goes, DVD releases include The Rise of Skywalker, as well as The Current War. And digital releases, Bad Boys for Life and Sonic the Hedgehog. So if you are in the mood for those movies and you have not seen them yet, go ahead and check them out. They are there for your home viewing pleasure, since that is kind of like the only way we can watch movies nowadays. Now, speaking of that, let's start talking about some movies, meaning movie reviews. So, the first movie that I am going to be reviewing today is A Fall from Grace. It is a Netflix movie. It's a Tyler Perry film, put it like that. So, disclaimer for this. I am not really a Tyler Perry fan. I'm not a huge one. I'm not a casual one. You know, I've watched a lot of his movies. It's just his movies don't grab me as an audience, as a movie lover. You know, some of them were good. Some of them were the only ones that really caught my attention was Acrimony, and I believe Temptation was one of his films. But those are the only movies that really looked appealing to me. Every other film was like, oh, it's a new Tyler Perry movie. Okay, moving on. It was just basically like that. So I'm not going to use this to crap on us. So I'll just put it out there as a disclaimer. And I checked this movie out when it first came out. This isn't anything that I just seen recently or whatever. I seen this back when it first came out on Netflix. And weirdly enough, back then I didn't even know that it was a Tyler Perry film. I guess I just missed the whole Tyler Perry's A Fall from Grace, because when I watched it, it was just A Fall from Grace, okay, whatever, and all this stuff. That was just a Netflix film until I saw Tyler Perry up in there. And then come to find out a little bit after I got done watching it that it is a film by Tyler Perry. So I'm like, okay, you know. And so in watching it, this movie, it didn't sell me on Tyler Perry. It really didn't. The premise was really good, though. It's about a public defender that is given a case that is supposed to be just something quick that she is supposed to handle and then move on to the next one. But upon getting into the case, she realizes that there is more to it. And when she starts digging, she finds out that this woman, Grace, who is on trial for murder, may end up being innocent. And so she starts to unravel this mystery involving it. And, you know, that's a pretty good premise. Pretty good. As far as the acting goes, you got Crystal R. Fox, who's playing Grace. She does a really good job as there. Brisha Webb does a good job with playing the main character. Felicia Rashad is up in there. She does a really great job. And Cicely Tyson don't really do too much, but, you know, she's in there. And Tyler Perry did, you know, pretty good. He is a good actor. If he would buckle down and actually do a movie that is Oscar worthy and, you know, actually put a lot into it instead of like just realming us with so many Tyler Perry films that he literally got as many movies as the MCU that he has written, produced, directed, starred in, and everything else. It's crazy. But they all did a good job. The only standout, and not in a good way, is Mehcad Brooks. Man, he's a great actor. I enjoy him in Necessary Roughness that he was up in, and even up in Supergirl. He played Jimmy, you know, and I enjoy his acting. He's a pretty good actor. He could be really, really good. But in this one, he was just kind of like the worst out of the whole bunch. Especially when his character just starts to blow up, and he just didn't work. But this production, learning afterwards that this production was made in 5 days, it was shot in 5 days, it really shows. Because it shows, but it doesn't. It's like, when you find out that it was shot in that limited amount of days, as you're watching it, you can be like, yeah, I could see it being shot in those many days. Because they don't really have too much. I mean, you can see that it's not really that big of a budgeted film. And, of course, people are going to point out which one of the things that stood out to me was the wigs. The wigs were just off the chain. It's just, I don't know what Tyler Perry was thinking. You got all this money to build this big-ass studio that's bigger than all these other big major companies put together studios. And you can't afford good wigs. I don't know. Like, that just seemed kind of off. But it does, I mean, it's pretty good as far as production goes, as, you know, for the amount of time that it was shot and everything else. But one of the things that Tyler Perry does do in his movies that are just kind of a negative for me is that he goes for those easy to pull at emotional strings. If he wants you to feel angry, he's going to make a character go so outrageous to where you just go against them. If you want the audience, you know, the audience to feel sadness, he's going to go for that easy to manipulate type of sadness from a character and stuff. And it's nothing that happens gradually. It's stuff that kind of happens like just right on cue, or, you know, I don't know, it just seemed like he a puppet master, and just, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like too much thought was brought into, trying to bring out these emotions. It doesn't seem like it happens organically. It seems like it just happens sporadically. And, if you're a big Tyler Perry fan, you're going to fall into it, and not really even think really too much of it. And that just, I don't know, like for me, that's just kind of like a negative. I like when stuff happens gradually and organically rather than, just manufactured or whatnot. But yeah, other than that, I mean, the movie is okay. It's not the worst thing, but it's not the best thing. It's not the best thing by a long shot. If you're a big fan of Tyler Perry films, you're more than likely going to like this. Probably not as much as like some of his other films. For me, I like Acrimony way more than I like this film. Way more. But I realize that Tyler Perry has his own niche. And he has his own audience, people that's going to love his stuff or, be fans of, like, if they see Tyler Perry's blah, 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 they're going to watch the sitcom, watch the drama, or watch the movie that comes out, the comedy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just not his core audience. I'm not one of his audience members at all. I'll check out the movie, but it's not something that I want to rush to the theaters or pay a rental fee or buy it on digital, Blu-ray, and all that stuff. It's just not that type of seriousness for me. But as far as just an overall movie, you could do better. He could have done way better. The reveal at the end was kind of like, I don't know, by the end of the movie, he just kind of lost me. But for this movie is a miss for me. You really, I mean, if you're a big Tyler Perry fan, check it out. Other than that, this is a movie that you can skip. So this last movie that I'm going to talk about on the podcast, and I'm going to end it off, is Brahms The Boy 2. Which, if you don't know, is a sequel to the movie The Boy. Now, if you've seen the original The Boy or whatever that came out a few years ago, and you've seen this, you would never know it. Because that's one glaring just flaw against this movie. Is that simply it retcons a lot that was in the original. Now, this is what the movie is about. Katie Holmes plays a mother where she is, a burglary happens in her home. Her son witnesses it. After that, she is traumatized as well as her son, but her son is not speaking. They move away from there just to kind of get away from just the memory of it. And they move to this place that's right next to this old house where the son ends up finding a doll named Brahms, in which he starts to talk to the doll. And since they see progress with him actually talking, and kind of like, I guess you could say, getting better from the trauma, they kind of leave him alone. But then the mother, played by Katie Holmes, starts to realize that there is something more sinister happening with the doll, and that she got to try and, take action on it before something bad happens to her son, or possibly just their whole family. But like I stated before, this movie retcons everything in the first film. Now, if you haven't seen the first film, I'm not going to give out spoilers or anything, but there is a reveal in the first one that is totally different from what this movie caters to. It's just, I mean, I can't really get into actually what it is and what it involves, but just the things, of the properties about the doll isn't what the first one gave us knowledge about. And then certain story parts or whatever is kind of tweaked. And what's weird is that the same filmmaker that was involved with the first film is involved with the second one. So he basically probably just went like, I didn't like what I did with the first one, so let me just change it up. Maybe they won't know. But if you call it The Boy 2, then you're going to have to keep some type of continuity. The continuity is just completely shot. And you would expect more from a person that actually had dealings and, did the story in the first one to cater that to the second one, and they just didn't. And that's one of the big flaws about this. So this probably would have did better with being a reboot or a remake or, of that story rather than a sequel if you're not going to obey what you did in the first film. But, but honestly, this movie, I didn't really even think that this is gonna have a sequel. You know, I mean, movies like this, they are cheap to make, cheap scares, and it's effective to a way where it's gonna make its money back and then some or whatever. So it can have a sequel. I just didn't really think it was much demand for a boy sequel to be made, and obviously somebody just wanted some quick cash and they just shot this along, and it's just whatever. Now this movie does have its creepiness to it, but as far as overall just scariness, it just doesn't do it. It's one of those teen horror films, like that's just the demographic and the audience that's seeking are high schoolers. Just if you're expecting more from a horror film, this isn't the type of film that you would expect it from. Now, as far as the acting, Katie Holmes, she did do really well up in there. I enjoyed her performance. Christopher Conry, who plays their son, he did really well up in there. And just all around, everybody did pretty decent for, you know, just the type of film that it is. But just when it comes down to it, the most enjoyable aspect of this film that I really did like was the Pizza Hut pizza that I had at Cinemark when I watched this film, because that was just off the chain. That and a cherry Pepsi, oh my god, that was just one of the best experiences that I've had in at the movie theaters in like the longest. You know, but at least it was better than The Turning. At least it was better than The Turning, which both of those movies, the original and The Turning, both play off of the kind of premise of the old novel called The Turning of the Screw. But I think The Boy did it better. Even the original did it better. But when it comes down to it, this is a movie that it's a miss. It's a miss. If you like these type of horrors and you quick to scare or whatever, and you just don't really care too much about it, this is a movie that you could check out. If you've seen the original, honestly, you don't even have to see the original. That's how much that movie retcons the first one. You don't even have to see the original. Just, it's called Brahms The Boy. That's just what it is. You know, but other than that, if you feel the need to check it out, check it out. But other than that, this is a movie that you can skip. It's not really anything overwhelming. It doesn't offer anything new. It's just one of those films that was made for the cheap because they can make more money off of it than not. But yeah, that ends that review as well as this podcast. Like, thank you guys for joining me on this episode of the podcast. I don't know if I'm going to do another podcast later on this week. I may end up doing it, but I do have a lot of stuff that I'm going to do. More movie reviews coming out this week, especially the countdown, which I've been neglecting for the past couple weekends. But I'm going to do 2 episodes of the countdown. And if you guys don't know what the countdown is, go ahead and just check it out on my channel. Just look up the countdown playlist. It should have its own. It's going to have its own playlist, as well as I'm going to have some other things coming out this week. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe, turn your notification bell, and just like this video. And I will catch you guys on the next one. So peace out. Hey, before you guys leave, make sure you hit that like button as well as that subscribe button. And you see that little bell, make sure you hit that to turn on your notifications. That way you'll be notified for anything that appears on my channel. Hope to see you guys next time. Peace out.